Hey everybody, I hope you are well, and I hope the ice is melting at your house as it seems finally to be melting at mine, and different pathways are opening up that I'm not going to slip and hurt my knee more on. We're getting into the phase of session where hours are getting a little bit long. Not every day, it's a little mixed bag, but I had two very long nights this week. First we had session on Monday. When we have session this early when we meet as a full body, as a legislature, so early in the session, it's generally we're what's called e-certing bills, which is to say there's something of an emergency and an urgent nature that needs to get done before it can go through the full process. So there's at least part of the bills that we consider that haven't gone through the process. Some of the other bills we end up doing have gone through the process, but more quickly because they are urgent. So this week in particular, the thing that drove the initial urgency was a situation with respect to a hospital Prospect in Connecticut, which is we're trying to keep it alive and propped up and part of another system. And we have a very cumbersome process for approval of hospital mergers. And it's not always cumbersome because it's so strict and information-based. It's cumbersome for some bureaucratic reasons. And so we're trying to fix that, but we needed to fix it more urgently in order to keep this hospital going and also to help other hospitals and to keep the doors open on other hospitals that are experiencing financial difficulties while they negotiate partnerships to keep them alive. So that was the urgent thing. And then there were a couple of other things that we addressed because they needed to be addressed more quickly. For example, we know that our school districts many school districts in the state are really struggling with special education costs. And so we are not done with the budget process, so we're not in a position to figure out exactly how much we can put into that pot. But we knew we had surplus now, and we delivered about we voted to deliver about 40 million of it, which does not violate any of our guardrails or spending restrictions, so that those schools could get some relief right now. And that includes, some in the northwest corner. Norfolk is a recipient of some increased money, as are Region 1 and Region 20. So those are estimated runs. We're going to take a look at that as we go forward, but I think it'll help some of the schools who are really getting pinched as they try to address the needs of students who need a little different approach. We also addressed things. We put some money into, not a lot, but enough to be a token and a symbol of our support for organizations that help people who are under threat from the federal government at the moment, and as a result, the need for those organizations has really gone up. That includes some LGBTQ organizations, includes Planned Parenthood, and support for their healthcare services as a whole, which of course includes cancer screenings and STI testing and all kinds of other kind of healthcare. We also took care of fixed some tax relief for disabled veterans, and addressed a challenging issue with student athletes who finally, some student athletes have been, some schools have been able to make quite a bit of money on their backs, and now there's an agreement nationwide which will help them, schools share some of the revenue from those sports with the athletes who are generating it. So we needed to have some legislation to help conform to that national settlement. Also in finance, we had our first public hearing yesterday, which went till midnight. So that was the hearing in which we heard all the proposed bills, which is a whole sort of potpourri of bills proposed by individual legislators, some of which they're a little early, and so they just need a hearing so we can learn something about them. Others helped us work out different concepts as we draft the bigger bills that we will move through the committee as the process goes on. This is also the part of year where we get heavy into the process, and I'm a list maker, so I have this color-coded list of bills and where they are in the process, and to make sure we don't miss any deadlines. I have to make sure they get reserved for a hearing before that deadline passes, have to make sure that they get the hearing before the deadline passes. There are deadlines for when they have to vote to be drafted, and then there are, of course, deadlines for each committee when we have to get bills out of committee. So really important not to miss those deadlines, so I make a lot of lists. Couple upcoming events that I just wanted to flag. One, there is a Community and Immigration Forum on March 6th at Trinity Lime Rock Episcopal Church, which I hope to participate in. And there is a legislative forum breakfast that's hosted by the COG, the Council of Governments, which is the consortium of we don't have county government in the state, so we use these things called COGs, which bring together different communities. And ours, the Northwest Hills COG, is having a legislative breakfast on March 19th, so I'll be there at that as well. And finally, I just want to note on a sadder, more serious note that in the last week, both Minority Leader Stephen Harding, who represents much of the 64th District, had a bomb threat called into his home, as did Attorney General William Tong. And it's just, I think it's really important for all of us to make sure that we are vocally abhorring and condemning any kind of violence like this against, politically based violence of any kind, honestly. But these kinds of threats are not who we are. They shouldn't be who we are, and it's certainly not the way we should conduct ourselves as we discuss these sometimes really serious issues, but we have to make sure we call that out whenever we see it. And I'm very glad that both William Tong and Stephen Harding's family is safe, and police did, I think in both cases, excellent jobs keeping those families safe and making sure that people are protected from threats. But glad to hear that everyone's safe, and sorry that they had to live through that. So let's make sure that we call that out when we see it. Thanks. Have a good weekend.